The Warriors post-game live with the Hall of Famer Chris Woolen. That is NBA champion Festus Ezeli. I am Bonte Hill live here at the Gay House in Drive City. And with 3 days off, they come at the perfect time for the Golden State Warriors because all eyes will not only shift to Giannis Antetokounmpo, but Stephen Curry's right knee.
Yeah, Bonte, this was a, first game at home. The Warriors really trying to get this home stretch going. It looked like, well, you asked me about Steph Curry's knee. Steph Curry is the one guy that they're building on right now, trying to find a way to keep this thing going. Jimmy Butler's injury has really put them in flux, trying to figure out a way to keep this ship going. The trade deadline is looming, and so the Warriors right now trying to get a win, trying to get a big one against the Detroit Pistons to feel good at home. First half, you got Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham set the tone for this game. What he did tonight was he came in the game, he got in the paint, got comfortable, got Duncan Robinson going, had 4 threes in the first quarter, and then from there, everybody else got involved in the game. I mean, the Detroit Pistons scored 77 points in the first half. That's incredible.
Yeah, the Warriors down 13 at half, and you said, Bonte, to start the third, the Pistons came out and blitzed them. They got up by 20. But from that point on, the Warriors outplayed them. They just dug too big a hole early in the game. A lot of free throws for both teams, 36 free throw attempts for the Pistons, 35 for the Warriors. So it was a physical game. But I think a surprising game. When you look, pregame, we're talking about two of the better defensive teams in the league. And you look at the score, 131-24, looks like an offensive explosion. But I thought the Pistons established their style of play. The Warriors made a really good run in the late, mid to third and through the fourth quarter. But I think it was just too big a hole to dig out of.
No doubt. Points in the paint, 62-40 for the Detroit Pistons. Again, the 77 points the Warriors gave up in the first half is the most points they've given up in any half this season. The 45 points they gave up in the first quarter were the most points they've given up in any quarter this season, and that was too big of a hole to climb out of. But Stephen Curry, of course, let's discuss his injury, because this was the 4th consecutive game in which he scored at least 20 points, and he was starting to get rolling here. 7 of 16 from the floor, 20 points, 4 of 10 for the three-point line, and the Pistons made him work and work. When he got injured, it was on an N1. He's on the bench. He got a heat pad on his knee, and he knew it right away as he went to the locker room. It did not return. But the Pistons were basically playing them straight up, Fezzi, with Asar Thompson, the Thompson twin, and they were taking their chances everywhere else. They made Steph work a lot tonight, that Detroit Pistons defense.
Yeah, I mean, the key in this game for the Detroit Pistons was to be physical. And Steph was already coming into this game struggling with some knee soreness. This is something to watch out for. No news of yet, but Steph leaving the game there in the third quarter was something to be concerned about, the fact that he didn't come back into the game. This was something that's been bothering him over the last few games. He was questionable for a couple of games on the road. Yep. One of the games he sat out. So, the physicality of the force of the game. If you watch the game, even in the first half, there's a few turnovers that Steph had. It just looked like he wasn't really quite moving well. He would hit a three, he'd hit a layup, and then he would limp back. So, Steph was fighting through some pain just to, probably got aggravated as the game went along.
Yeah, I think in between the Minnesota trip and going to Salt Lake City, Steph had some swelling, because I remember post-game in Utah, one of the post-game questions to Steve Kerr was, Steph Curry has a lot of an ace bandage, like a sleeve on his knee, and Steve's like, yeah, he's been in the league 17 years, and he runs 5 miles a game and things like that, but could be some wear and tear. Obviously, just hope he is okay, but something's acting up a little bit, so hopefully it's just a minor thing. He can get a day off, and get, they don't play till Tuesday, so they got a few days off here, so hopefully he'll be able to get cleared up. But Bonte mentioned Asar Thompson, and we were down there watching together. The one thing I noticed about this Detroit Pistons team's defense, Fezzi, they're not one of those teams that automatically switch everything. Old school, fighting over screens, sometimes through screens, to stay with their man. That's both on-ball screens, and then Steph running off, whether it be split action, down screens, flash screens. Asar Thompson was fighting over the top as much as possible and not passing him off, which a lot of teams do, and that's where Draymond a lot of times finds the screener for a layup. He found Al Horford one time. But the physicality and fighting over screens was different than you see most teams. Now a lot of point switching and less contact. Detroit's one of those old school defensive teams. They're fighting over screens, getting physical, and not just giving up to the screens.
They're fighting over screens, being physical, holding on to you, grabbing, fighting them, and busting through those screens. But the reason is because they have 2 elite shot blockers in the back. You have Jalen Duren, You have Isaiah Stewart. Both these guys can block shots. They're guys that you want to funnel guys to because at least when you get into that paint, you're going to feel one of them and you're going to touch the floor. You saw that a few times. 71 free throws in this game tonight. It kind of got mucky up there towards the end. A shout out to our refs. But this game tonight, it really came down to the execution of the Detroit Pistons. You know, Cade Cunningham, I can't say enough about him as a leader, a guy who leads the floor, sees the floor. And then you could talk about, you know, his ability, not his lack of ability to shoot. It really doesn't matter, Bonte, because his size makes up for that deficiency, if you call it that, because he can still create his shot on a two-point shot. He is so big that he gets to the post up off the dribble, and he's so crafty with the ball in his hands that he still was able to create shots for his team. He had a double-double at halftime.
His 25th double-double of the season, 29 points, 11 assists, 4 rebounds. And Mully, he missed a lot of layups. He had some threes go in and out, but you could tell how he controls the pace. He's just so methodical in his attack, gets inside the paint whenever he wants to. And if that three-point shot starts going down for him, this guy can average 30 in this league a game.
No question. He's the MVP candidate for a reason. And part of the reason, Bonte, is he sets the tone and the style of play that J.B. Bickerstaff wants them to play, both offensively and defensively. And we said pregame, you know, they're number 4 in the league in fast break points with 18 points per game. Tonight, 25-10. They're number 2 in points in the paint at 60 per game. 62-40 points in the paint. That's their game. That's what they do. Points off turnovers, 31-23. So they forced 18 turnovers. We knew ahead of time. That's we get those notes. Right. They're the number 1 team in the league at forcing turnovers. They did that tonight. So when you look at it, you know, for a while I thought it looked like they should have been up 30. But it was really, they were playing their style of basketball. The Warriors hung in there valiantly. But I don't think the Pistons ever really felt threatened because it was their style of play. I think they felt like they could get a shot anytime they wanted to. They got a little sloppy here and there. But this team's now 35-12. Yep. Far and above the best team in the Eastern Conference. And like we were talking during the game, Bonte, it looks like they could maybe use another shooter around Cade and the bigs that they have, besides Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Doran. But they're going to be a tough team in the playoffs, man. And by the way, we mentioned this pregame, Fezzi and Bonte. This team came from way in the bottom just 2 years ago. What was their record, Bonte?
2 years ago, the Detroit Pistons were 14-68. They had a stretch of games, Fezzi,
2 seasons
where they
ago.
were 1-35 in a 36-game stretch. They were 2-38 during a 40-game stretch, and they lost 28 consecutive games. That was just 2 seasons ago.
And that was with Cade Cunningham.
Cade Cunningham was on that team. That's why I said pregame. I didn't know those numbers. But you can't help but have respect and admiration for a guy like that went through that and is at the top of the Eastern Conference.
A lot of the same players on that roster.
Today, we dive headfirst into what just went down for the Golden State Warriors. And I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. This one hits hard. It hits deep. And every Warriors fan needs to hear this. Friday night at the Chase Center should have been a bounce-back moment after a brutal stretch, but instead, it turned into a roller coaster of hope, fear, grit, and unanswered questions that have Dub Nation buzzing from San Francisco to every corner of this league. Let's start with the biggest headliner, Steph Curry leaving the game with right knee soreness. This isn't speculation anymore. This is fact, straight from the latest reports. Curry was rolling, carrying the offense with 23 points and knocking down shots that only he can make, all while battling through discomfort that has been nagging him for over a week. But midway through the third quarter against the Detroit Pistons, he goes down, grabs that right knee, and heads to the locker room, and he never returned. That right there sent shockwaves through the Chase Center and every Warriors timeline on Twitter and X. Now, unlike some panic headlines out there, there's reason for cautious optimism. Coach Steve Kerr after the game didn't sugarcoat anything, but he also didn't drop the nuclear verdict. Kerr said what every Warriors fan wanted to hear most, that it doesn't appear to be a major injury. He didn't dismiss the concern, but he also stopped just short of letting the sky fall. That's real, that's honest, and that's the kind of transparency Dub Nation deserves right now. Here's the unimaginable tension. The Warriors are already without Jimmy Butler for the season after his ACL tear threw the roster into chaos early this year. That loss alone changed the identity of this team, forcing them to dig deep, grind harder, and play above and beyond themselves just to stay afloat in a Western Conference that throws curves like curveballs. Now, flip to the trade deadline, less than a week away, and yes, all the trade chatter that has fans exploding in the comments. The biggest rumor in town? The Warriors might pursue Giannis Antetokounmpo to pair with Curry. And this isn't wild talk from random timelines. This has emerged as legitimate league noise, with multiple teams, including Golden State, showing aggression in offers. Giannis has not officially demanded out of Milwaukee, but sources say the Bucks are listening. That alone is enough to set social media on fire. This is where it gets juicy. If Steph's knee were a long-term concern, how does that affect Golden State's willingness to trade away key pieces to get Giannis? Do they gamble the future draft capital? Do they put tradable assets like Jonathan Kuminga on the table just to make it worth Milwaukee's while? Because without a healthy Curry, signing Giannis becomes exponentially more complicated, and that's exactly the crossroads we're staring straight into. And let's be clear, Steph himself has publicly tried to shut down the noise about trade hypotheticals, reminding everyone that right now the focus is on winning games and staying present. That response tells you everything about his mentality: locked in, competitive, not getting distracted by off-court speculation, but it also tells you there's awareness that the roster around him is in flux. So while the Pistons may have walked out of the Chase Center with a 131-124 win, and even though Cade Cunningham's performance made every headline imaginable, the real story for Warriors fans isn't the loss. It's what fighting through pain tells you about this team's DNA. Because even with Curry hobbling, the Warriors didn't quit. They clawed back. They executed in stretches at championship-level intensity. They showed that even when things go sideways, this franchise still has fight left in that locker room. And let's not forget other keys to this roster's future. Players like DeAnthony Melton and the Warriors' core role guys have stepped up this season when needed, making big plays, contributing crucial minutes, and proving that they belong in the rotation. The resilience from this group is real, and it gives Dub Nation reason to breathe through the worry. So here's the reality. Everything is on the table this week. Steph's health updates, trade deadline decisions, lineup adjustments, and the Warriors' quest to stay legitimate in the playoff hunt. It's chaos, it's pressure, it's exactly the kind of moment that defines champions. Now, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Do you think Curry's knee will sideline him beyond a few days? Should the Warriors go all in on Giannis if they can make it happen? Drop your opinions in the comments, smash that like if you're feeling fired up, and hit subscribe so you don't miss another explosive update from Warriors Nation News. Let's talk, let's debate, let's keep it real.